Okay, so we're going to talk about dialogue based on the text, The Art of Thinking Together. First, we've just written down some of the main arguments from the text, which is basically that the quality of conversations impacts everything, and that the success is dependent on the quality of dialogue rather than the actual idea or initiative. So focus is primarily on the dialogue aspect. And if you don't focus on dialogue, it could lead to resistance from team members. So based on how good the idea you initially had, it's not really going to work unless you focus on the dialogue aspect. And then we have this model of, which is basically, we saw it as 4 steps in which on how you can improve dialogue, with the first one being listening, followed by respecting, then suspending, and then voicing. Yeah, just take the next one. What he's done is basically he's made some guidelines onto how we can improve dialogue and how we should actually look at dialogue and how we can improve it. The first one, listening, is a very important aspect. It's basically about listening to what other people has to say. So if you think of, we did the exercise in class, in which you try to listen to and sort of feel the emotions you feel or you gain from listening to other persons. And then we talked about respecting as well, which is basically just respecting that people are probably different from yourself and that they therefore have different opinions. If you think of the one making strange is not about it's not about finding similarities between you and the one you're listening to, but rather than you actually just try and find differences and to see what that leads to. Suspending. Joe, is it you? No, okay.
All right.
Sorry.
I can try to do that. Yeah, suspending is then like the next step, that when you already listen to yourself and the emotions that you have, and then trying to also respect the other person, and then suspending is actually not coming too quickly to a solution, but then actually it's the reflecting part, basically, where you go back and think about why do you feel that way, why are you in this situation, and then before you come to the last part, which is then voicing. And for us it was the final part where you actually would communicate in the dialogue, and where you actually would voice your opinion and then very much state exactly what you think as well, and not trying to put something out there what you might think others want to hear from you as well.
Yeah, we just talked about the other model as well. The one with the 4 spaces of conversational fields, in which you also have between step 3 and 4, you have suspending as sort of the in between step 3 and 4. So where you basically reflect on what you've heard, and then using, preferably if you use the model correctly, you'll be able to sort of use that to your dialogue. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. So we have a couple of examples, or a few examples, and I will give examples to the first 2. So in terms of voicing, in my group, the Wildlife of Copenhagen, we had an example of voicing where I gave my direct opinion, and my 2 team members were really sweet and suspended, allowed me to listen, or allowed me to speak or express myself while they were listening. And in terms of listening, there is also an example from one of the groups from Answer Me, where one of the group members indicated that she noticed that there were some group members that were more quiet, and she therefore decided to listen in order to allow them to express themselves more freely. And that ended up being very creative and good for the group.
In terms of respecting, we've got, I guess, an unusual example, because at the beginning of our group work, many of the group members were expressing themselves in German, which I, as a non-German speaker, didn't like very much. But at the end, we found out that perhaps sometimes it was beneficial for the group to respect that they wanted to express themselves in German, because they came to a conclusion of something much quicker, let's say, and it was more efficient, therefore. And last one, suspending. We had a little sort of let's say, an argument about whether we were supposed to do a teaser or not, or whether we wanted to do a teaser. A few of us were saying that that's not really the way you do it on YouTube and whatever. And we had, let's say, arguments against why we should not do a teaser, and other members of the group were saying that we should just try it and see how it works. And at the end, we suspended our opinion and did a teaser, and I think it was quite beneficial for the group as well.
To talk about the critical reflections and the limitations of this article or chapter in the book, it's kind of a simple structure, so it's really difficult because it disregards the blend of the different options where dialogue is so complex. To just be like it's A, B, C, or D kind of is a limitation towards this. The writer himself, he's a founder of the DIA logos, so therefore his motivation is much towards leadership through managers and executive teams. So it doesn't include situations of hierarchy where you're just kind of told what to do, hierarchy. And this model fits very perfectly with his other models, like the bystand, move, follow, oppose. They all have 4 categories, so that's where you have to think about, well, why is it that they fit so perfectly and what has been missed? And this is like really great high level, but we're not sure, like, can it be broken down again, as dialogue is very complex. So it's like super high level, can it be broken down into the nitty gritties? So we think this is really good, but dialogue is so complex that does it actually capture everything?
And do you have a sense of, could you give an example of something that this model wouldn't capture? Like any? Because it's a good hypothesis. There might be something it doesn't capture, but then the next thing would be like, can you come up with an example of something in dialogue that the model wouldn't capture?
I guess, for example, the hierarchy just assumes that everyone is or should be on the same level. And all of those 4 different types of dialogue should be used, let's say, equally, or it doesn't specify of how much they should be used. And maybe there are some situations, like the one we discussed, a kindergarten group with a teacher, where the teacher should be the one leading the conversation or the activity in order for it to be the most productive, perhaps.
Okay, yeah,
so
good example. Cool.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Is there any more?
Anything else? Give it a hand.